If you're like most of the women in our community, you probably organized your home a dozen times. It worked great, but somehow over time, those organization systems disappeared. The secret to homes that just seem to stay together isn't that those women are better at organizing, it's that they know that organized isn't a destination, it's a step in the cycle. Most people stop at step three, but the magic is really found in steps four and five.
Today, we're moving past the organized phase and into the two steps that actually make your hard work stick: optimization and maintenance. When you integrate optimization and maintenance, you stop reorganizing and start living in a home that supports you every single day, even on a tired Tuesday.
Welcome back, friends. If we haven't met before, my name's Adrian.
And I'm Mary.
And together we've started this YouTube channel called Life a Go-Go. For the past 5 years, we've been helping hundreds of women take back control of their homes, their productivity, and their lives. And we've enjoyed building an online community. So we hope that you will help us in this journey by hitting the like, subscribe, and share buttons below. It lets YouTube know that you like this content and that we can be a trusted source of information.
The real secret is understanding that organizing is actually a 5-step cycle. And most people get stuck because they think they're done after step 3. Today, we're continuing our 5-step organizing framework and talking about what comes after step 3, what comes after organizing. And it's optimization and maintenance. This is the part nobody really explains, but it's what turns organizing from a continual project to a system that is locked in to support your life long term.
Absolutely. And if you missed any of our earlier videos on the mindset, decluttering, organizing, or containers, we'll go ahead and link the playlist below so you can catch up. And we'll also link our decluttering organizing guide down there too. You don't really have to watch them in order, but obviously it makes the system work better as a flow. So if you're joining us today, feel free to watch this video and then go back and see the past videos.
So this is 2 parts. Part 1 is optimize. So let's start by defining what we mean by optimization, because this is where people tend to get a little fuzzy. The optimization stage is really about the fine tuning. It's about taking what's working and make it work even better. It's giving yourself permission to change things that aren't quite right and using what you've learned about your real habits to make your space truly functional. That's why the step doesn't usually happen right away. You need to live with your system to accurately evaluate how it's working. Sometimes it takes a few weeks, but honestly, most people need about 3 months, and that's a good rule of thumb. Now, this gives you time for your system to be tested on weekdays, weeknights, busy season, low energy days, real life.
Absolutely. And optimization itself has 2 paths, so kind of like a Y, right? And on the one path, everything is working, and on the other path, it's not. And those are both completely normal experiences in this process. So what does it look like when the system's working? Basically, all the items are mostly staying where they belong. You may have a little bit of a mess or a little bit of like a tweaking to do, but by and large, the system's working and you're happy with it. You're using the space the way that you intended, your days feel easier, and you lost that friction that was causing you all that problems beforehand. And this is where the optimization step often gets skipped. And it's also what causes that organization system to decline and kind of erode away over time. Because when you get organized, you're like, great, everything's in its place, I'm done. And you're actually not done. This is the moment where you need to pause and lock things in. So in this locking in step, this is the time where if you've been using temporary containers to get organized, you finally have enough information to invest in some permanent containers that you love. And if you want any tips on that, make sure that you're watching our container video where we went all out with everything to consider when buying a container. Labels also become more intentional. So maybe you just kind of used masking tape for your label. Now's the time to get a label that actually looks pretty, that you like, that functions well in that space. And for our detailed organizers, those bees and crickets out there, this is your moment. So when we were going through initially, we told you go ahead and do macro categories, because if you want to micro sort your items into small, tiny subcategories, if you started with that step, you would become quickly overwhelmed. But now you already have your items refined and you know what you want in that space. So go ahead and Micro-organize your heart out. This is where that belongs. This is also the stage where you want to deal with any of those leftover homeless clutter items. You know, those few items that didn't quite get a home during the organization step. In most cases, you now know where the item belongs, you're ready to check it, or you may want to make an intentional miscellaneous other bin for that area.
Now, path number 2 of the why is the system is not working.
Yeah.
The second path is realizing the system is not working the way you had hoped. Optimizing is the hardest stage because it really requires honest evaluation. You're taking something that looks good and that you worked really, really hard on and admitting it needs to change. I mean, that's hard. I mean, it really is emotionally hard. But this is also where the biggest improvements can happen because the clutter or the snags are actually data. It tells you what's not working. This is where one of our core principles really matters. Where your clutter is gathering, like I said, is a data point. Clutter patterns show you where your items want to live. And if things are consistently ending up next to where you want them to go, that's not laziness, it's information. So let me give you an example about a pantry. The snacks keep landing on the counter instead of back in the bin. Well, that tells you to review a number of possibilities to maybe correct and refine the situation. The bathroom is another place. Your daily products live on the counter instead of under the sink. So this tells you the system has too much friction for your real mornings.
Absolutely. And Mary, as professional organizers, this is where we typically will get called in, right? So you either get called in at the beginning where somebody just has too many items that they need to declutter, but we also come in when people are like, I really tried to get organized and I'm frustrated. And I think that that can be helpful, but really oftentimes when I go into a client's home, it's usually one of these common tweaks that we're looking at, and we kind of see those same root issues. And one of the biggest ones is the containers. So now the container, again, could be the actual bin or storage box. It could also be the shelf or the placement of the items, right? But when we're looking at this, it's usually that the container is too big, so it kind of becomes a dumping ground. If you have too big of a container, it's nice to have enough for overflow, but if it's too big, people just start throwing other stuff in there and your categories get messed up, right? The other problem is it's too small and it's either hard to put the item in or you're constantly having overflow. So perhaps like when you organized in the summer, you didn't account for the sales in the fall and now you have dish pods everywhere, right? So you got to kind of tweak those little things. And then sometimes it's for any organizer, not just micro organizers, sometimes a big bin needs a little bit more structure. So like we talked about the fabric cubes, sometimes, that's a great big huge cube. Sometimes you need to put like a divider in there, or like those zipper pouches that you mentioned, Mary, are great just to break it up so it's easier to go in and find what you're looking for. And then of course the containers have to match how your brain works. So I know we've been talking about the Clutterbug system, and again, we'll link her quiz below. We just feel like if you haven't gotten organized and you just feel really frustrated with it, usually it's because you're organizing in the traditional way, and most of us don't fall into that traditional organizing pattern. So when it comes to containers, and especially, you might be a visual person where you actually need to see your items to remember where they go or what you have, or that might be so overwhelming to you that you're starting to avoid the space because there's too much. And so therefore you might do better with like an opaque container where you can use a label to know what's inside, but you don't have to actually see those individual items.
Yeah, you can't organize for look or aesthetic. Ease is much, much more important than perfection or House Beautiful magazine layouts. I mean, you have to organize for you, your family, and how your home really functions and runs. And if a system makes you avoid using items, the system is the problem, not you. This is why the lids, the height, the location, how low down or high up you need to reach, how much effort it takes to get something out or put something back, all of that matters. And sometimes the system works for you, but not for the people you live with. And that doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means redesigning for the real life and your family.
Absolutely. Basically, the optimization stage is really about that fine tuning. It's taking what's working and making it work even better, but it's also giving yourself permission to change things that aren't quite right and using what you learned about your real habits to make your space truly functional.
Now, part one was about optimizing. Let's now talk about part two, which is maintenance. Now, once a space is optimized, we move into maintenance. And maintenance is not cleaning, it's not perfection. It's ongoing decluttering and resetting so the system keeps working. And as a bonus, those clear labels and simple systems allow family members to help more easily.
Absolutely. Maintenance is necessary because our systems shift with use. New items are constantly entering our home, and then there's also changes in our life, our seasons, or our needs, right? But the big rule to remember when it comes to maintenance is that it should take minutes, not hours.
You're right, it needs to be quick and repeatable. I'm talking 5 to 20 minutes. Maintenance is also a diagnostic tool. If it's taking longer than anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes, depending on the space and the frequency of use, either you have let it go too long or your system needs tweaking. And when your space is truly organized, putting things back takes no time. You're not searching for where something goes. You're not moving other items around in the room to make everything fit. You just put it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this before, but the high touch areas are also determine how often you really have to focus on maintenance. So, you could do a quick tidy up of your whole home, but sometimes you really need to go deep into those high touch zones, like your kitchen, your drop zone when you come in your house, the bathrooms. Those usually need maintenance more often because we're using them so frequently. Whereas the low touch areas like your storage closet or seasonal items, they need it far less. Good maintenance works with your habits, not against them. And here's the great news. The maintenance actually gets easier. So the more that you do these small resets, the faster they actually will become because your brain is learning where everything is going, your muscle memory will kick in, and you also get to not have that overwhelm when you start because you've been staying on top of things. So it almost feels like it's automatic to just keep it to that standard that it's now become.
So let's talk about the bigger picture. We talked about part one, optimizing, part two, maintenance. So now let's talk about the bigger picture. And this is the part no one really does talk about. Once your systems are optimized and you're maintaining them easily, something's going to shift. You start making different buying decisions. And this is not because you're forcing yourself, but because you know yourself a whole lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Mary, a great example of this is maybe a little bit timely, but the planners, all these people who are like, oh, I have all these unused planners or partly used planners. And I myself have so many planners.
Yes. Yes.
Right? But here's what I learned about myself because I kept being like, oh, I feel so bad that I didn't use this whole planner for the entire year. When I was decluttering them, I would have like partially used. Some I didn't use at all. And I was like, you know what, that planner style is just totally not right for me. And we actually did do a video with that, which is really cool, based on like all of your personality types. So you can check that out here. Or in the description box, we'll leave a link. But one of the things is like for me, I need a planner that sits flat, right? I can't have a book. Like that doesn't work. So now when I go to buy a planner, I'm only buying the planners that actually sit flat. The other thing was is that I like to have some novelty in my planner. So it just seems like at one point in the year, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired of looking at the same planner. And then I'll want to go buy another one. And now it's like, you know what? I would rather buy a planner that's a little bit cheaper so I can buy multiple in the year than invest in like a beautiful leather kind of planner, which, they're nice, but for me, that doesn't work. And I also personally find that when I buy a planner, I'm very motivated. Like, oh, I got to dream out my life. And if I have a new planner, I just feel like, wow, the world is an endless possibility. The world is my oyster, Mary. So,
And you are its pearl.
I'm the pearl.
You're the pearl.
But okay, so now that I've looked at it, I know, okay, what type of planner do I absolutely never use? Like that doesn't work for me. I know what kind does. And I also know that I'm the kind of person that does buy multiple planners in a year. And so I was able to adjust that price point to something that's more affordable. And when I'm done with that planner, I don't have that guilt anymore. And in fact, it actually makes it easier to declutter that planner now because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go back to it. So it's having that knowledge that if I was just looking at the pile of planners, I wouldn't have had before I actually started that organizational cycle. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because once again, you used it as data points, data information, and helped you refine what you're doing. The
Yeah.
the whole secret sauce of you're buying intentionally, not on a whim or because you think you might like something. You also start recognizing clutter before it enters your home. And you start thinking, that's going to become a problem when I get home. I mean, the funniest thing I ever heard of is a woman that has a t shirt on the back that says, "You don't need that," and walks around stores, and women go, "You're right, I don't." So you recognize, do you really need to take this home? Or if the gift isn't right for me and it doesn't make it you ungrateful, it's just not serving you. So this is when you really stop organizing clutter and you start preventing it. And this is the part of organizing that actually changes lives because it's not about containers or labels. The entire 5-part cycle is about learning what yourself and your family and designing systems that support who you really, really are. If you take nothing else from today, let it be this. Your spaces should meet your needs. Your spaces should not drive your behavior. You shouldn't have to change who you are to fit an organizing system. Your systems need to change to fit you. The 5-step cycle isn't something you do once and you're done. It's an ongoing relationship with your space that evolves as your life changes.
Yes. And remember, all 5 steps work together. You can't skip to maintenance without doing the foundational work. You can't optimize systems that don't even exist yet. But when you do all 5 steps, the mindset, the decluttering, the organizing, the optimizing, and now the maintenance, you create something that's actually sustainable. Your home becomes a tool that serves your goals instead of the source of stress that drains your energy. And if you want support at any time, feel free to email us with any of your questions. We love to hear from you. We also really want to interact. So we don't want to just be a YouTube channel that's one-sided. We want to meet with you. And so that's why we hold monthly lives. They start here on YouTube, and then we go into a private Zoom room so we can actually connect one-on-one. As we mentioned before, we'll link our decluttering organizing guide below, as well as some of those additional resources that will help you. Thank you, friends, for being here. Thank you for doing this work, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye bye.